The B-2 Spirit is a stealth strategic bomber, extremely advanced, capable of penetrating dense anti-air defenses, carrying out its attack and leaving completely undetected. That's already known. In fact, its flight computers and electronics are so advanced that it's the only flying wing in the world that is perfectly stable and safe. And it's still capable of carrying 2 pilots and thermonuclear bombs on board. Its advanced stealth technology ensures its superiority in any combat or espionage mission. But in fact, much of the information about this plane is actually false. There's no such thing as an undetectable or radar-invisible plane capable of penetrating dense anti-air defenses. Stealth technology used in aircraft like the F-22, Raptor, the F-35, and even the B-2 Spirit significantly reduces radar detection, but it doesn't make the aircraft invisible. They can still be detected by low-frequency radars, infrared, and other advanced tracking methods. To give you an idea, a radar from the 1980s was already capable of detecting a swarm of insects in the air and large birds. Although they always tried to filter out these detections, which are known as clutters or radar noise. In other words, what was considered an unwanted target at that time can now be a sought-after target. So, a B-2 Spirit can, in fact, be tracked, detected, and shot down by an anti-aircraft missile system from several countries, especially those from China and Russia. Hypersonic missiles are often presented as the last word in military technology, capable of overcoming any existing defense and radically altering the balance of global power. Although these missiles represent a significant technological advancement, the idea that they are unbeatable, impossible to intercept, and the last word in military technology is a myth. Among the various problems surrounding these weapons, such as their high cost and production difficulties, one of their main weaknesses lies in their control. The controllability, navigability, and maneuverability of the onboard system of a weapon that flies at speeds of 674 kilometers per hour, or Mach 5, is easy in theory, but not in practice. These weapons' accuracy remains highly debated, since computers need to perform trajectory calculations at absurd speeds, and any tiny error in the movement of a fin, tiny errors in the engine's gimbal system, gusts of wind, different layers of the atmosphere, and changes in air pressure and density can cause serious deviations from the planned route and make the missile miss the target by more than 100 or 300 meters. Besides, most of them are not effectively stealth, which makes them easy to detect. However, an article from Missile Defense Advocates states that during flight, the missile is completely covered by a cloud of plasma, which absorbs any radio frequency waves and makes the missile invisible to radar. This allows the missile to remain undetectable on its way to the target. In other words, the extreme speed ends up solving some of the problems that affect these weapons, but it doesn't make them unbeatable. Look, here's another myth. A submerged submarine is, in fact, perfectly detectable. Actually, nowadays, it's possible to know the exact location of these machines with relatively good accuracy. The American system, known as Sound Surveillance System, or Acoustic Surveillance System, was developed precisely for this purpose during the Cold War, back in 1950. The system consists of a network of underwater hydrophones, which are sound-sensitive devices placed in strategic locations on the ocean floor. To detect sounds produced by moving submarines, the system picks up sounds generated by propeller noise, engines, and other mechanical systems, and the information is later sent and processed by computers. Through powerful algorithms and triangulation, It is possible to determine the location of the submarine with relative accuracy, and the systems successfully detected dozens of Soviet submarines and those from other nations during the Cold War. In other words, submerged submarines. They're not as camouflaged as people think.
The nations of the world must not allow the Iranian regime to acquire nuclear weapons. Iran aggressively pursues these weapons and exports terror. Governments like these and their allies form an axis of evil, arming themselves to threaten the peace of the world.
Another myth in the military world is that it's easy to hack any system with relative ease. Although countries like the United States have advanced cyber capabilities, the idea that they can hack any system easily is exaggerated. Well-protected systems with robust cybersecurity measures can be extremely difficult to compromise. And hacking often requires time, resources, and deep knowledge of the target's specific vulnerabilities. In fact, the very fact that 100% of companies have their own network, called an intranet, already constitutes a barrier to hacking. The famous case of Stuxnet is a good example. Some infiltrator had to bring the cyber weapon on a flash drive and personally insert it into a computer at the Iranian plant. Reconnaissance satellites, also called spy satellites, have impressive capabilities. They can detect prohibited nuclear tests, see through clouds, and detect the launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile within the first seconds of launch. They are capable of detecting the tiny signal that will trigger the detonation of a small improvised bomb. And they can even read the brand on a can thrown on the street, even from more than 400,000 kilometers above. However, the idea that they can see through buildings and solid walls is a myth. Technologies like synthetic aperture radar, which can see through clouds, through vegetation, and through thin structures, do exist. But it has limitations and cannot penetrate dense materials such as concrete walls. Even satellites that operate in infrared, microwave, and ultraviolet also do not have this capability. The idea that the United States military possesses anti-gravity technology is a myth. Research on advanced propulsion continues, but anti-gravity, as depicted in science fiction, is not a technically viable reality at the moment. When referring to anti-gravity as a hypothetical phenomenon of creating a place or object free from the force of gravity, it does not refer to the lack of weight of the object under the influence of gravity, nor to free fall or orbit, nor to the balancing of the force of gravity with some other force. In the opposite sense, as in electromagnetism or aerodynamic lift, it is in fact an object or a place completely free from the force of gravity. And this is still not a reality, scientifically speaking. Anti-gravity is a theory that challenges the known laws of physics, especially Einstein's theory of relativity, which describes gravity as a curvature of space-time caused by mass. To nullify gravity, it would be necessary to fundamentally alter space-time, something that is currently beyond our technological and scientific capabilities. Antimatter is a real substance. It is made up of particles that are almost identical to the particles of ordinary matter, the only difference being that they have opposite electric charges. In this case, protons are called antiprotons, electrons are called positrons, and neutrons are called antineutrons. Whenever particles of antimatter meet their matter counterparts, they annihilate each other instantly, releasing large amounts of energy. Some theories suggest that antimatter weapons are being developed and used militarily by some nations in the world, which is a myth. The reality is that producing and storing antimatter in significant quantities is extremely expensive and technically unfeasible with current technology. In addition, controlling and handling such a weapon would be incredibly dangerous. Quantum physics has concepts like quantum entanglement, which has already been mistakenly interpreted as the teleportation of information. Some people believe that the military has the ability to instantly teleport people or objects from one place to another. So far, quantum teleportation has only been demonstrated with subatomic particles, and there is no viable technology to teleport microscopic objects or humans from one place to another. In other words, it's a myth.